We've also had an opportunity to work with Veterans Administration and with veterans themselves and introduce the FreeWheel. What are some of your favorite stories from working with veterans?
Well, the VA has caught on, and they're interested in the quality of life of the vet. And for that reason, they will supply FreeWheels to vets who need them. And I've met many vets. Actually, my dad was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, so I'm familiar with military. And a lot of the vets, stories that stick out in my mind are the vets that have service dogs. And they put a FreeWheel on their wheelchair and actually have their service dog or dogs pull them to propel them. What a free ride. What a great ride. I mean, they're hiking through trails and they're hiking through the woods being pulled by their dogs. They're having more fun than I am.
And you have a lot of childlike spirit in you, I happen to know, being a neighbor of yours. And that's one of the things that strikes me about the FreeWheel's ability to not only provide physical freedom, but that mental and emotional freedom, as well as inspiring the childlike spirit. And you mentioned the word sedentary, that childlike spirit that I think also can go sedentary when people are physically constrained. And so the FreeWheel itself brings about those joys. And you've gotten some videos through social media of people in all kinds of environments really regaining that personal sense of joy.
Well, you know, I didn't know this when I started working on the nuts and bolts of the FreeWheel, but you're right. The social and the not spiritual, but when you're stuck in a wheelchair, you're worried that you're going to miss out. Mm-hmm. With a FreeWheel, you can get to so many more places than without it. You get back the feeling of, oh, I can take part now. I can go and be there now. And it's not a function of being limited to what has sidewalks and what doesn't. And that is a pretty powerful motivator to get your fanny off the couch and go do stuff.
Would talk to Pat about what it's like to be an inventor. The FreeWheel is not your first invention or patent. How did you get started on the road to being a patent-holding inventor?
Well, I think I'm a do-it-yourselfer. And my dad was a do-it-yourselfer. So we're constantly solving problems, building things for fun, building things for work. And I think inventing is really solving problems. And maybe that's just the way my mind works. I know I'm not alone. I do like to say when I grow up I'm going to be an inventor. My 9-year-old son says the same thing. And boy, if I go back in years, I'm always interested in building ideas to see if they work. Years ago, I used to design windsurfing equipment. My first patent is in windsurfing equipment, where I designed a couple of things that were new and different. And that was a real education. My patent lawyer, who I taught to windsurf, tells me all the time, and here's free advice, a patent does not make a product. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes we think it does, but it's true. Just because you have a good idea doesn't mean it's going to make a good product in the market. And that lesson was a tough one to learn.
So in that process, you learned a lot along the way. You talked about working with a lawyer, which is about protecting the idea, right? The patent is about protecting the idea. But it doesn't mean someone will go out and buy that product or that you'll be able to find a manufacturer. Thinking about the FreeWheel story and all of your trial and errors to find the right vendors who would manufacture the FreeWheel for you, what was the biggest challenge in that process?
Well, I think it often boils down to communication. If you have an idea, a design, a prototype, when you want to go and have somebody else make it, you have to communicate what the design is, what you want it to do, how you want it to last, what you want it to look like, All these things require communication, because if you don't get it right, you'll end up with something that you don't like, you don't want, you can't sell, you can't use. So I'm fascinated with an engineering background. I'm fascinated with how important communication is. And oftentimes, engineers are not the greatest communicators. And so, gee, I hope I don't get in trouble saying that, but that's what I've learned.
Well, you are one, so you have permission, right?
There's no need for name calling.
Okay. And how about the biggest joy or triumph in just the manufacturing part of the process? To have the FreeWheel that you have in hand today, was there one point that really stands out as this is triumphal? I am so happy about this.
Well, my goal was to put in production my FreeWheel and make the product better than the ones I made myself in my garage. I figured if they were as good or better than what I was making myself, I'd have something, because people enjoyed the ones I made myself. And I was proud of the ones I made myself. And through economies of scale and professional factories, the end product is quite a bit better than what I could make myself. And so I'm kind of excited about that. I've had folks use my handmade FreeWheels, and then I upgraded them to production FreeWheels. And their feedback was kind of fun, because they said, hey, you've really turned this into a product. And that was a feather in the cap right there. That made me feel good.
And having seen the prototype FreeWheel, some of the early versions, and the progression in the last 2 or 3 years, you really have what some would call a work of art in the finished product. It's functional, it's usable, it's accessible, and it's nice looking.
Oh, stop.
Oh, well.
Stop it some more.
Okay. So in all of that, it does take all of those elements coming together to create a product that people do want to purchase, and that then people tell other people about. Well, back to what we talked about with people putting their success stories of mobility out on the internet, bragging on your behalf of what they have found in their lives. That's exciting.
They do a lot better job selling it than I do. And back to the design portion, I figured if it's not easy to use, no one will use it. If it's out of arm's reach, no one will reach for it. And if it's complicated to use, if it's heavy, if it's expensive, that's the wrong direction to go. As an inventor, as an engineer, it's so easy for us to make things complicated, heavy, expensive, and require help to use. That's easy. What's difficult is going the opposite direction. And I only learned a couple things in college. One of them is the KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid. Not easy to do. But with this design, I tried to make it so I could use it myself. I tried to make it as inexpensive as possible so that more people could afford it and use it. I tried to make it something that someone could use without asking for help. And tried to keep it as light and grabbable as possible. And often that meant reducing features, reducing material, reducing cost, reducing weight, trying to go the opposite of the direction of the adaptive equipment on the market these days that helps us either get into vans or get in the tub. I should say, I travel around and do trade shows to show off my FreeWheel. And all the disability, I should say, the disabled equipment manufacturers are building all kinds of things. Cars, trucks, vans, tractors, all these standing frames that are so expensive, complicated, heavy, hard to use, requires help. And I often wonder if these things are designed by able...
You've done that with the
people
FreeWheel.
always ask me, how come this hasn't been done before? They ask me that all the time. And I have an answer. I'm not sure if it's right or not. But, you know, able-bodied designers can sit down in a wheelchair and they sit completely differently than someone with a spinal cord injury, let's say.
Sure.
What they're feeling is different than what I'm feeling. You know, actually, it's always kind of funny watching an able-bodied person sitting in a wheelchair, and they actually look uncomfortable because of the way they're sitting.
So the FreeWheel has been sold all over the world. How many have you sold, and in how many countries?
Well, I've been selling the production model for 2 years now, next month, and it's really exciting to say I've sold thousands. And I've sold them in 30 different countries now. And in a sense, it's kind of strange. They're selling faster out of the country than they are in the country. Maybe it's because there's a lot of countries out there, and there's a lot of folks that need them.
And that's the key. It's a need, and it frees people up mentally, emotionally, and physically to interact in the ways that they want to interact with the world. So here's the beauty. You've created a product from your own personal experiences that you know works, and others now are reporting how well it works. From today's conversation, if people want more information, how do they find more out about the FreeWheel?
Oh, you can go right to my website at www.gofreewheel.com.
So gofreewheel.com. Pat, thank you for coming in today. I am so glad to hear more about the story.
Well, thanks for having me.